Let's move on to the Los Angeles Rams. Their over-under has been set at the same as the Cowboys. We do have to slightly curtail it with the fact that let's respect the fact that their division is stronger than the Cowboys overall, depending on what you really feel about the Cardinals going into this year, and I guess the 49ers as well, but let's be kind. I still have feelings. Their out-of-division schedule is very difficult this year. Not only that, but Super Bowl coming off the back of it, you always have the bit of a hangover, bit of a loss of talent potentially. I'm intrigued what you think of the Allen Robinson hype, because I was listening to Jordan Rodriguez this week, who does the Athletic. She does the 11 Personnel podcast and covers the Rams for the Athletic. I think she's a really decent X's and O's writer as well. And she was talking about watching them in practice and trying not to get overexcited about it, because she's trying to stay, level-headed and doing her job and staying. But she's saying what she's seeing there is the same thing she saw from Stafford and Cooper Kupp last year, where they're like getting down and drawing plays together in the dirt and then making these like changes at the line of scrimmage that McVay hasn't even handed them. And like, it feels like finally Allen Robinson, after maybe the worst first 7-8 years in the league from a quarterback perspective that anyone who can be considered an elite wide receiver has had, is flourishing with the opportunity to finally have somebody who knows what they're doing back there. In theory, if he is as good as they are projecting him to be, then that sounds like a pretty decent offense, even with some elbow injury problems for Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to see on the elbow injury. Some of the reports last week from the same writer you were talking about there, that was really concerning. They're just like, oh yeah, it's he can't throw, so we'll see how it goes. All of the symptoms of a UCL injury, which is what they're kind of hinting at, which is the Tommy John surgery in baseball, which is really rare for a quarterback. And then you have to get Tommy John surgery, and that's usually an 18-month recovery. So they just kind of jab it and jab it and jab it and hope that it holds up for the year. So it's a concerning one for a guy who, that's how he throws the ball, right? He rips it sidearm. He's not an over-the-top classic delivery guy. He throws like a baseball player. It's a bit concerning. If he plays and he's absolutely fine, then they should club people. I mean, there's not a finer group of offensive weapons out there, really. Maybe the Niners, because they got the tight end and the offensive weapon in Debo that the Rams don't have. The Robinson thing, to your point, they needed a big body, big frame. It's third and long, and they're always an empty. And we can't manufacture space for Kupp every time, because they do a lot. Cooper Kupp is unbelievable, but a lot of that offense is manufacturing ways for Kupp to get open, be it through play design or bringing him into a stack, using a second body to get him clean off the line of scrimmage, because he just doesn't get off the line as cleanly as most elite players. He's kind of better in the second, third phase of the route, which is where he beats people at the top of the stem. So just having someone who's giant, who, as everyone deploys their resources to try and slow down Cooper Kupp and try and roll over the top of him, they usually have to deploy 3 guys to do that in the middle of the field. You just have a giant body, big long arms, and Matthew Stafford can rip the ball to him along the sideline. It's a perfect second fiddle.
Also, the other report that was coming out, and as much as Stafford has been throwing and looking relatively comfortable when he has been, just it sounds like pain management perspective so far, which is, it always sounds terrifying, but you know how many players are going through that at any one time. But it was also interesting hearing from Cam Akers about the wrinkles in the offense, because they went from that kind of every run was under center with Goff, everything was just designed to deal with his frailties, to, I mean, you mentioned the empties, Stafford being in the gun, lots of the run coming out of that as well, loving to go with the empty sets. Well, apparently this year it's kind of almost, they went from what we think of as a McVay offense into a very Stafford heavy offense, into apparently a bit of a hybrid so far, is what people have seen in training camp. That excites me. Like the idea that we're going to see them do something a bit more multiple this year and do something a bit more out there with extra weapons as well. Like if Stafford's healthy, like you say, they should absolutely destroy people. And on the other side of the ball, okay, they've lost actually, we should mention the line as well. You lose your left tackle, even though he was 40, he was still, doing a job. And you're going to be playing a rookie by the looks of it at guard. Always question marks about those things. If there's an offense designed to hide those things, I guess McVay's is it? Is that me trying to justify it? I sound enough like a Rams fan right now.
That's more where that empty stuff will come in, because you can just eliminate a lot of that. No one's sending pressure in the NFL against Matthew Stafford and empty. All right, they're they're saying, can you pick us apart or not? That becomes the game, and Stafford is as good as anyone from empty. So they're not lighting him up from that, which means you can pretty clearly define who's coming, who's staying as an offensive line and make things a lot easier for him. That's part of what happened last year when Noteboom had to slot in for Whitworth, is they just went, and that super spread stuff that you're talking about there, they bounced to that like 30% of the time. That was the bulk of the offense. So I think they can. And Noteboom was really, really good when he was put in there. That's why they extended him and tried to keep him in the offseason. So I have no worries about him. And the rest of the line is pretty dominant too. So we'll see on that. I think the thing you mentioned on them kind of blending their ideas is really interesting, because when Stafford first came, he basically played pure isolation football in Detroit. And then McVay runs no isolation stuff, or very, very minimal, as much as you can get away with in the NFL. And then last year they did pretty fairly blend the two in the first instance before ditching it both together and building an entirely new offense. So I think that my understanding would be they were trying, that's what they want to be. It wasn't quite working with their personnel. And then they obviously moved to an offense that did work and they won the Super Bowl. And I think they want to go back to the grand idea, which was blending those two philosophies anyway at the start of the year. But the way the league is now, it's really hard to get under center and run the ball now. So they're going to have to play from the gun anyway. And that would favor more towards Stafford's ideology.
What I was mentioning on the defensive side of the ball, Von Miller gone. That's a problem. Bobby Wagner added, not in the same position, obviously, but somebody who could, in theory, be a lovely piece to add to a veteran defense if he's, we didn't see a huge amount of him compared with the player that we know he can be over the last 2 years, but that was in a very talent-weak Seahawks team, as we've increasingly seen.
And completely misused, because they tried to ask him to do the same Bobby Wagner stuff last year in year 50 or whatever he is in the league as they did when it was year 2 and he was the most gifted athlete in the entire league. I don't for 1 second imagine that Raheem Morris will say, hey man, can you carry number 3 vertically and go get the quickest guy down the field the way the Seahawks are still asking you to. I imagine they say, hey Bobby, run through that guy's face mask downhill, and he goes, yes sir. And if anyone can still do that, it's Bobby Wagner. So I think they'll put him in the ideal spot to succeed, and he won't be a 3-down player necessarily anymore. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Ernst Jones next to him I think is uber talented and could be pretty special for them. The Von Miller one, that to me isn't that significant of a loss. Really, they brought Miller in to change the profile of the pass rush more so than have him as a standalone brilliant player. Now, he was outrageously good when he got there, just as good as he's ever been. I don't think they want to be a 5 down and go defense, just kind of in general. That would be pretty aggressive. Most teams aren't doing that. They're lining 5 and dropping 1 out. So you can manufacture with Leonard Floyd, I think, some of what you got from Miller because they brought Donald back. And having Donald and Robinson playing well inside, I think, is probably more important than whether or not they could bring Miller back.
Right. I am going over on the 10.5, even though despite that difficult schedule, I kind of believe in the Rams. I think they split the tougher games in the division, and then I think they just win outside of it for the most part. To be honest,
I spent all offseason trying to pick holes in them and see the pieces that are leaving, but I think it's the most confident I've been. I don't have full confidence of a team going back to back in at least 10 years. I can't see a fault, and not a fault as in like they're going to go unbeaten, because they are such a boom and bust side anyway. But I drop them in the playoffs tomorrow. I think they'll absolutely make it. And then I'm trying to think who has as many high-end pieces as they do, and there's really no one that it's at least matched. Buffalo is the one where I think Buffalo is just a better team overall. I think they're more consistent. I could see them ripping off 16 wins. I can't see the Rams doing that. But you put them in a one-on-one matchup in the playoffs, and there's no one more talented than the Rams.
Let's talk Saints. Over under set at 8.5, which I think with their defense feels relatively low. With hopefully a healthy Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, feels relatively low. Do you ever want to bet on a Jameis Winston team going to 9+ wins in a season, though?
My big concerns is, I've written about this a lot with the defense, that you take out the Marcus Williams piece, and I think it's such a dramatic change for the whole defense that has gone a little bit under the radar. And I thought that was the best defense in the league overall last season, but they are so massively changing who they are defensively. And until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. And then you factor in that we're really banking on the health of Kamara and Thomas. And if you're looking at 8.5 wins, and I know you get to play,
the Falcons,
you get to play the Falcons. I get that, and that's really good. But you also do have Jameis, who, as you said, is liable to throw any one of those games away just because he has a Jameis day. And you're betting on the health of two players who I'm not sure will be healthy, and an offensive line that was comfortably in the top 4 or 5 in the league, right, for 4 years running. And now you look at it and it is just woof after woof after woof along the whole line outside the tackle.
I feel that's very rude towards Ryan Ramczyk.
I said outside the right tackle spot. Ryan Ramczyk is unbelievable. The rest of that guy,
yeah. Thank you. I didn't actually hear you say apart from the right tackle slots. I'll let you off on that. I was thinking to myself, they've got one really good player.